A 6 a.m. call rips me from sleep. They're building on your grandpa's farm. Heart pounding, I race 5 hours to Meadow Creek, only to find bulldozers clawing through his fields, churning up corn and soybeans for 97 luxury homes. A slick HOA Karen queen named Diane smirks like she owns it all, until I unearth a dusty box hidden under Grandpa Joe's desk. What secret could turn her million-dollar dream into a nightmare? Stick with me. This battle's just igniting, so smash that like button for 39 likes and hit subscribe. You won't want to miss how this unfolds. The city skyline glittered through my apartment window, a jagged silhouette against the pale dawn, when my phone jolted me awake at 6 a.m. I fumbled for it, the screen flashing an unfamiliar number, my head still foggy from a late night at the office. "Hello," I croaked, rubbing sleep from my eyes. "Alex, it's Mrs. Thompson," came the voice, shaky, urgent, laced with a rural twang I hadn't heard in months. "They're building houses on your property." My heart stuttered, the words slicing through the haze. "What? Who's building?" "Sunny Pines. Big yellow machines started digging yesterday," she said, her anger trembling over the line. "They've got signs up, 97 luxury homes, right where your grandpa's East Fields used to be. You need to come quick." I sat up, the sheets tangling around me, my mind racing. Grandpa Joe's farm, 200 acres of rolling Meadow Creek land, inherited when he passed last March, felt like a distant memory, buried under my city jobs deadlines. I hadn't been back since the funeral, guilt gnawing at me for it. "Are you sure?" I asked, half hoping she'd misread a boundary line. "I've lived next to Joe for 40 years, she snapped. "I know his land like my own. They're tearing it up, cornfields, soybean rows, all gone. Get here, Alex." The call ended, her words echoing in the quiet. I stumbled out of bed, my bare feet cold on the hardwood, and yanked a suitcase from the closet. Clothes went in, jeans, a jacket, whatever I grabbed, my pulse hammering as I pictured bulldozers chewing through Grandpa's legacy. Sunny Pines? Some HOA I'd never heard of? It didn't add up. 5 hours later, tires crunching gravel, I turned onto the dirt road to the farmhouse, the familiar path now a stranger. The air smelled of earth and pine, but a low rumble undercut the peace, machinery, growling beyond the trees. I crested the hill, overlooking the eastern fields, and my breath caught. Dust clouds billowed like smoke, yellow excavators clawing at the soil where Grandpa once drove his tractor, hard-hatted workers swarming like ants. A sign loomed near the road, bold and smug. Future home of Sunny Pines East. 97 luxury homes, starting at $450,000. My hands tightened on the wheel, knuckles white. I parked beside the farmhouse, its weathered siding peeling under the sun, and stepped out, boots sinking into the soft earth. The fields were a war zone, corn stalks uprooted, soybean rows flattened, orange spray paint slashing the ground in jagged lines. A woman stood apart from the chaos, pristine in beige pants and a crisp white blouse, her auburn hair perfectly styled despite the dust. She clutched a clipboard, phone pressed to her ear, her voice clipped and smooth. I marched over, the rumble of a bulldozer vibrating through my chest. "Excuse me," I said as she hung up, my voice sharper than intended. "What's happening here?" She turned, sizing me up with cool hazel eyes, like I was a nuisance buzzing around her plans. "We're preparing for residential development," she said, her tone practiced, offering a hand without warmth. "Diane Reynolds, Sunny Pines Homeowners Association president." I ignored the handshake, my jaw clenching. "This is my land. My grandfather, Joe Miller, owned this farm. He died last year. I inherited it." Diane's smile was a thin, polished thing, not reaching her eyes. "A misunderstanding, I'm sure," she said, almost pitying. "Sunny Pines purchased this parcel 9 months ago. We've got permits, approvals. Everything's in order." My mind reeled. Impossible. Grandpa would never sell. This farm was his life. Her gaze didn't waver, her voice softening with false sympathy. "Maybe he didn't tell you. The sale was finalized before he passed. I'd be happy to have our legal team send the documents." "No," I said, stepping closer, dust swirling around us. I want to see them now. She handed me a business card, her manicured nails gleaming. Contact our legal department. But I assure you, it's all legitimate. Now, if you'll excuse me, we're on a tight schedule. She turned away, dialing her phone, dismissing me like I was already gone. I stood there, the card crumpling in my fist, watching a bulldozer rip another chunk from the earth. Helplessness clawed at me, but something else stirred too. Grandpa's voice, gravelly and firm, from summers on this porch. This land's ours, Alex. Always will be. Back at the farmhouse, Mrs. Thompson waited, her wiry frame perched on the porch steps, gray hair pulled into a bun, a pitcher of iced tea sweating beside her. Her brown eyes, sharp despite her 70 years, softened with worry. They started 3 months ago, surveyors, then machines, she said, pouring me a glass. Joe was spitting mad, said they had no right. I took the tea, the cold glass grounding me. Did he ever mention selling? She shook her head, fierce. Never. Swore it'd stay in the family forever. The day before he went to the hospital, he was digging through his office, muttering about protecting it. I glanced at the farmhouse, its windows dark, Grandpa's office untouched since his death. Protecting it from what? I asked, my voice low. Mrs. Thompson's gaze drifted to the fields, her lips tightening. From them, I reckon. Sunny Pines. They don't just build, they take. I set the glass down, my boots thudding on the steps as I headed inside. The office door creaked open, releasing a whiff of pipe tobacco and old paper. Grandpa's scent, preserved in time. Shelves sagged with almanacs and photo albums, a filing cabinet looming in the corner. If answers were anywhere, they were here. I pulled open the top drawer, fingers brushing faded folders, crop yields, rainfall logs, nothing about sales. But Mrs. Thompson's words gnawed at me. Grandpa, furious, searching for something. I knelt by his desk, running my hand along the floorboards. One shifted, loose under my touch. Heart pounding, I pried it up with a letter opener, revealing a small metal box, a key dangling beneath the desk. Inside, a deed, his will naming me heir, and a yellowed survey. 1910, the farm's boundaries sprawling far beyond what I'd known. My hands shook as I unfolded a letter in his handwriting. If you're reading this, someone's trying to take what's ours. The truth's in the lines, Alex. Fight for it. Outside, the machines roared on, oblivious. But I wasn't. Grandpa hadn't just left me land. He'd left me a weapon. Night draped the farmhouse in a heavy hush. The only light, a flickering lamp on Grandpa Joe's desk, casting jagged shadows across the cluttered office. I sat cross-legged on the hardwood, the metal box open beside me, its contents spilled like treasure over the faded rug. Deed, a 1910 survey, and Grandpa's letter, his slanted script trembling under my fingers. The truth's in the lines, Alex. Fight for it. My eyes burned from hours of squinting at yellowed papers, the air thick with dust and pipe tobacco. But sleep was a distant stranger. Outside, the bulldozers had gone silent, their hulking shapes dark against the horizon, but the threat they carried lingered, coiled tight in my chest. I unfolded the 1910 survey, its edges brittle, the ink faint but firm. 280 acres, not 200, stretching east past the fields in a land I'd never claimed. My breath caught as I traced the boundary with a shaking finger. Grandpa's farm swallowed the construction site whole, and then some. I grabbed a newer map from the filing cabinet, a 1978 update, and laid it beside the old one. The lines matched, 280 acres, clear as day, but the county's current records, pulled online via my phone's spotty signal, showed only 200. Somewhere, somehow, 80 acres had vanished. My mind raced, Diane's smooth voice echoing. We purchased this parcel 9 months ago. Purchased from who? Grandpa wouldn't sell, not this land, not his soul. The letter weighed heaviest. They've been after it for years, he'd written. Try to pressure me. Easements, lies. I never signed. Look at the 1910 survey, compare it to now. I leaned back, the floor creaking under me, piecing it together. Sunny Pines hadn't just stumbled onto this. They'd planned it, exploited his illness, maybe forged something in his final months. But proof? That was the kicker. I needed more than old maps. I needed the how, the when, the who. Dawn broke gray and restless, the sky a bruised smear over Meadow Creek. I drove into town, the farmhouse shrinking in my rear view, my boots still dusted from the night's search. Walter Franklin's office sat squat on Main Street, its faded sign swaying in the breeze. He was older than I'd pictured, 70, maybe, with a bow tie and thick glasses perched on a beak-like nose, his desk buried under legal pads and coffee mugs. "So, Sunny Pines is building on your land?" he asked, voice raspy, peering at me over his rims as I spread the surveys across his desk. "According to these," I said, tapping the 1910 map, "they're not just on it, they've been on it. The original boundary goes half a mile east of what's recorded now, covers their new site and part of their existing development." Walter's eyebrows climbed, his gnarled finger tracing the creek bed snaking through the old lines. "Highly irregular," he muttered, swapping to the 1978 survey, then the county's version. "This shrinkage, it's not natural. 80 acres don't just disappear." "Exactly," I said, leaning forward, my jacket rustling. Grandpa said they pressured him, claimed he signed something. He didn't. He was too sharp, even sick. Walter rubbed his eyes, glasses dangling from his hand. "We need the county records. See when this changed." He dialed the assessor's office, speaker crackling as a clerk droned through files. 1984. "Minor easement, 10 feet for utilities," she said. Then 1997, big shift, 80 acres gone. Signed by Joe Miller, notarized. My stomach dropped. 1997? He was in the hospital, triple bypass. Couldn't sign a damn thing. Walter's face hardened, a glint behind his glasses. Fraud then, but proving it's a beast after decades. That signature's shaky, could be contested. He scribbled notes, his pen scratching like a war drum. "File an emergency injunction. Stop construction now. Petition to restore the original boundaries. We'll need a surveyor to verify these maps." I nodded, adrenaline spiking. "How fast can we move?" "Today," he said, already typing. "But brace yourself, they'll hit back hard." I left his office, the sun climbing higher, and drove to the construction site, dust swirling as workers hammered stakes in my land. My land, damn it. Diane's black SUV gleamed near a trailer, her beige pants spotless as she barked orders into her phone. I parked, boots crunching gravel, and strode over, the injunction papers hot in my hand. She hung up as I approached, her hazel eyes narrowing, her auburn hair a perfect shield against the chaos. "Construction stops now," I said, thrusting the court order at her. "Legal boundaries are in dispute." She scanned it, her composure cracking, a twitch in her jaw, a flush creeping up her neck. "Ridiculous," she snapped, crumpling the paper's edge. "We have permits, sales, everything's legal." "Based on fraudulent lines," I said, voice low, steady. "I've got original surveys, 1910, 1978. Your 97 homes? They're on my property. So's your clubhouse, 20 existing lots, and your house, Diane." Her hand froze on her phone, knuckles whitening, her practice smile gone. For a heartbeat, uncertainty flickered in her eyes, then iced over into something colder. "You're making a mistake," she hissed, stepping closer, her voice a venomous whisper. "This little stunt will cost you. You have no idea who you're dealing with." I held her gaze, dust stinging my eyes. "I'm starting to." She turned, heels clicking, but her threat hung heavy, a storm brewing. Workers slowed, glancing our way, the bulldozers idling as the injunction sank in. Back at the farmhouse, I sat on the porch, the surveys spread beside me, Grandpa's letter in my pocket. Mrs. Thompson shuffled out, her flowered housecoat flapping, her brown eyes sharp. "They're packing up," she said, nodding toward the fields. "You scared him." I shook my head, the weight settling deeper. "Not yet. This is just the start." Diane's words echoed. No idea who you're dealing with, but Grandpa's echoed louder. "Fight for it." The lines in the dirt were drawn, and I was ready to redraw them. The sun dipped low over Meadow Creek, painting the farmhouse in streaks of gold and shadow, but the quiet felt like a held breath, not peace. I stood on the porch, Grandpa Joe's surveys tucked under my arm. The injunction, a fragile shield against the storm I knew was coming. The construction site sat still beyond the trees, bulldozers frozen mid-roar, workers gone for the day, but Diane's parting hiss lingered like smoke. "This will cost you." My boots scuffed the worn planks, the air cooling fast, a chill prickling my neck. She wasn't bluffing. By dusk it started. 3 white SUVs rolled up the dirt road, their sides emblazoned with Sunny Pine security, headlights slicing through the twilight. I stepped out, heart thudding, as a stocky man in a gray uniform climbed out, his buzzed hair glinting under the porch light. He handed me an envelope, his face blank. "Cease and desist notice from the Sunny Pines HOA," he said, monotone. "Withdraw your claims or face legal action." I tore it open, pages claiming my documents were fake, accusing me of fraud, demanding damages for their reputation. My jaw tightened. "This is a joke," I said, but he shrugged. "Just delivering it. Have a nice night." They didn't leave, parked in a row, blocking my driveway, engines idling like a taunt. Morning brought worse. I woke to concrete blocks stacked across the driveway's end. Overnight, silent, a barricade trapping me in. A guard lounged nearby, smirking. "Unapproved access point," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Closed for safety." I called the sheriff, civil dispute, they said hands off. My phone rang next, Diane's name flashing, her voice syrupy when I answered. "Good morning, Alex. Enjoying the view." "This is harassment," I snapped, pacing the porch. "You can't block my property." She laughed, light and sharp. "Actually, per county records, the real ones, that driveway crosses our common areas. We control access. You know those records are wrong." I shot back, my grip tightening. "Let me explain how this works," she said, her tone hardening. "The commissioner golfs with my husband. The inspector's daughter works for me. Your water might drop tomorrow. Maintenance issues. Contractors won't call you back. Drop your claims, sign over the disputed acres, and this stops. I'll even pay you 7 figures cash." I stared at the blocks, rage simmering. "It's not about money. It's always about money," she purred. "Think it over. You got until tomorrow." The line went dead. True to her word, the water trickled to nothing by noon. A county inspector arrived, wiry, clipboard in hand, listing violations. Wiring, septic, porch rails, thousands to fix, all urgent. Signs sprout along my fence. Future home of Sunny Pines East. My pizza delivery never came. Driver couldn't find the address. I sat in the dark kitchen, the fridge warm, food spoiling, Diane's web tightening step by step. She thought she'd choke me out, force me to fold. But Grandpa's letter burned in my pocket. Fight for it. She'd underestimated the wrong man. Headlights pierced the dusk, a car weaving past the barriers. A beat-up sedan, not security. I tensed, hand on the door, until Gerald Fisher stepped out, the HOA treasurer from the meeting, balding and jittery, his thick glasses fogged with nerves. "I shouldn't be here," he muttered, glancing at the SUVs. "If Diane finds out, why are you here?" I asked, opening the door wider. He clutched a flash drive, his round face pale. "Because she's wrong. I've got something you need to see." Inside, at the kitchen table, his laptop glowed, files spilling open. HOA records, emails, spreadsheets. "Diane's been using dues like a piggy bank," he said, voice low, pointing to a line. "Last year, $2,000 road repair fees per homeowner. Work cost half that. Rest vanished. Sunshine Consulting LLC, her son-in-laws, siphoned it." My pulse quickened. "Theft." He nodded, scrolling. "And more. Landscaping, security, all to her family's companies. The 20 homes on your land? Drainage issues ignored. She knew they weren't hers to fix." "Why show me?" I asked, leaning in, the lamp flickering. "I'm tired of her," he said, glasses slipping. 7 years, keeping books, watching her rule. Your surveys scared her. I've never seen that. People are unhappy, Alex. You're not alone. My phone buzzed. Text from strangers. We support you. Miller's, 42, Sunny Pine Lane. Fine $500 for veggies. Jackson family. Playground gone. Want to fight. Gerald smiled faintly. I shared your number with a few. I stared at the screen, hope flickering through the anger. Diane had power, connections, cash, but she'd bred enemies too. We need a plan, I said, the flash drive cold in my hand. Start with those books. Meet me tomorrow. He nodded, slipping out, his car vanishing past the barriers. Rain pattered the roof, soft and steady, washing over the silent bulldozers. Diane thought she'd caged me, but she'd just handed me a key. Grandpa's fight wasn't solo anymore. That night, I spread the surveys again, tracing the stolen acres. The wetlands Grandpa loved, dark patches on the map, lay under her precious lots. My phone lit up. Walter, environmental survey in tomorrow. Brace yourself. I grinned, rain streaking the windows. Diane's counterstrike had backfired. She'd rallied a rebellion she couldn't crush. The farmhouse kitchen was a tomb by morning. No water, no power. The fridge a silent hulk of spoiled food under a gray dawn. I stood at the sink, staring at my reflection in the dark window. Grandpa Joe's surveys spread like battle plans across the table. Diane's siege had stripped the place bare. Concrete blocks still choked the driveway. Security SUVs lurking beyond the trees, their lights sweeping the fields in lazy arcs. She thought she'd break me, grind me down with fines and isolation. But the flash drive from Gerald burned in my pocket and texts from strangers, "We're with you," lit my phone like signal fires. She'd miscalculated. I grabbed my notebook and slipped out the back, dodging the guards, my boots sinking into muddy grass. Mrs. Thompson's porch glowed a block away, her flowered housecoat a beacon as she waved me in. "They cut your utilities?" she gasped, brown eyes wide behind her bun. "Illegal as hell." "So's building on my land," I said, taking the chair she offered, the scent of coffee warming the air. "Diane's got the county in her pocket. I need allies. Who else hates the HOA?" She grinned, sharp as a fox. "Grab a pen, honey. This'll take a minute." 15 names spilled out. Families fined for mailboxes, old-timers bullied into selling. A single mom hit with a $900 fee for a toddler's fence. I spent the day knocking on Sunny Pine's doors, my jacket damp from a drizzle that clung to the air. At first, they hesitated, eyes darting, voices low, but when I showed Grandpa's surveys, something shifted. Sarah Jenkins, a wiry woman with gray-streaked hair, invited me in, her hands trembling as she poured lemonade. "Diane made my husband rip out our tomatoes. Not aesthetically pleasing," she said. "Find us $500. He works 2 jobs already." The Patels fought over a porch swing. The Johnsons couldn't paint their door red. Trevor Martinez, stocky and bearded, leaned in close. "It's not just rules, it's her. Warnings for some, instant fines for others. No fairness." By dusk, 27 families had stories, anger replacing fear, hope flickering in their eyes. I called Walter from Trevor's porch, rain tapping the roof. "Can we form a rival HOA on my land?" "Legally, yes," he said, his raspy voice crackling. "The existing homes? Trickier, but your surveys give us leverage." "Book the community center for tomorrow night," I said, grinning. "They don't own it, I do." He chuckled. "Smart kid." Next day, I printed 200 flyers. Emergency community meeting. Your home may be at risk. Survey copies stapled on, and slipped them under doors as night fell. The community center buzzed by 7 p.m., its beige walls straining with 97 families. Chairs full, people lining the edges, whispers thick with worry. I stood at the front, flyers in hand, heart pounding as Diane shoved through, her red blazer a slash of fury, auburn hair taut, hazel eyes blazing. "This is unauthorized," she barked. "Everyone out." Sarah Jenkins shot up, her gray hair wild. "Or what more fines? Haven't you taken enough?" Applause roared, chair scraping. I raised my hands, voice steady. "I'm Alex Richards. This was my grandpa's land, stolen by Sunny Pines. But I'm not the only victim." For an hour, they spoke, tears, shaking voices, tales of HOA tyranny. Fines for kids' noise, gardens torn up, fees vanishing. Diane sat rigid in the back, tapping her phone, her face a mask of rage. "Here's my plan," I said, holding up the 1910 survey. "We form the Meadow Creek Coalition. Fair boundaries, new rules, transparent funds. No one loses their home." Diane leapt up. "You can't. They're contracted to us. Not on fraudulent land." I countered calm. "I'm fixing what's broken." The vote was electric. 89 families joined, cheers echoing as Diane's glare burned holes. Gerald sidled up after, glasses fogged, voice a whisper. "HOA finances don't add up. Dues rise, reserves shrink." Diane locks me out of the books. "Show me," I said, gripping his shoulder. "Tomorrow, your office." She stormed over, finger jabbing my chest, her red blazer trembling. "You'll regret this. By tomorrow, you'll wish you'd never come here. I've got the commissioner, the chief, the judge. They'll crush this." "A threat?" I asked, unflinching. "A promise," she hissed, slamming the door as she left. The room emptied, hope lingering in the air, but my phone buzzed. "Walter, environmental surveys in. You won't believe it." I stepped outside, rain streaking the parking lot, Diane's taillights vanishing. A woman lingered, Janet Rivera, high school friend, now a Meadow Creek Gazette reporter, her dark hair wet, recorder in hand. "Heard it all," she said, grinning. "Every threat, on tape. Front page tomorrow." "Do it," I said, pulse racing. Diane thought she held the reins, but Grandpa's truth was unraveling her web. One ally, one secret at a time. Dawn broke sharp and cold over the farmhouse. Police sirens slicing through the stillness as I stumbled onto the porch, blinking against the glare of squad car lights. 3 vehicles ringed the yard, dust swirling in their beams, and Diane Reynolds stood smug beside a tall man in uniform. Chief Williams, his badge glinting, his square jaw set hard. My heart thudded. The surveys and Gerald's flash drive heavy in my jacket, but I forced a calm step forward. "You're trespassing on private property," Williams barked, his voice gravelly, hand resting on his belt. I smiled thinly. "Actually, Chief, I'm the legal owner. Check these." I handed him the folder. 1910 survey, 1978 update, Grandpa's deed, watching Diane's hazel eyes narrow, her red blazer stark against the gray morning. "Unverified," she snapped, arms crossed, auburn hair whipping in the breeze. A car door creaked behind them, and Carolyn Mitchell stepped out, county records clerk, mid-40s, her dark bob crisp, glasses perched low. "They're verified," she said, spreading maps from her briefcase. "Pulled the originals last night after some concerning reports." Diane's face drained, her knuckles whitening around her phone. Inside, coffee steamed on the kitchen table, the room a tense council. Williams, Carolyn, Walter Franklin's bow tie askew, Diane fuming, and me, surveys spread like a war map. Carolyn traced the lines, her voice steady. The boundary shifted in 73, deliberate, not a mistake. This land, including Sunny Pines homes and new site, belongs to the Richards estate. Williams whistled low, flipping through the pages. "That's a hell of a screw-up." "Not a screw-up," Walter rasped, sliding Gerald's financials forward. "Fraud, $427,000 in dues funneled to Sunshine Consulting, Diane's son-in-law's LLC. Landscaping, security, all to her family." Diane slammed the table, her red blazer trembling. "This is a scam, extortion. We're hardworking people." I leaned in, voice low. "Hardworking at stealing? Your house sits on my land, Diane. Every lot you sold, every fee you pocketed, built on a lie." Williams skimmed the records, his face darkening. "Ms. Reynolds, you're coming to the station." "Now." She bristled, her voice rising. "My husband golfs with Judge Harrington. You can't touch me." He grabbed her arm, unfazed. "We'll see." By noon, news vans clogged the dirt road, construction halted, yellow machines silent under a drizzle. My phone buzzed nonstop. Homeowners, frantic, pleading. I called a town hall that night. The high school auditorium packed. 400 souls, chairs spilling into aisles, air thick with fear and fury. I took the mic, rain tapping the roof, my boots scuffing the stage. I'm Alex Richards. This was my grandpa's land. I didn't come to fight, just to honor him. But Sunny Pine stole from us all. Shouts erupted. What about our homes? My savings. Chairs scraping as anger flared. I raised my hands. No one's losing anything. Existing owners get legal deeds. Your homes stay yours. The new site? Redesigned, smaller, protecting the wetlands Grandpa loved. I clicked to his environmental studies. Maps glowing on the screen, wetlands pulsing with life. Endangered species live there. Buildings illegal under federal law. We'll swap lots for buyers. No losses, just fairness. Sarah Jenkins stood, gray hair wild, voice shaking. 8 years under Diane. Fines for tomatoes. Kids silenced after 7 p.m. Is that our community? Murmurs swelled. Relief, then resolve. For an hour, they spoke. Tears, defiance, a tide turning. Over 300 signed for the Meadow Creek Community Association. Gerald stepping up to untangle the HOA's mess. Diane's lawyers fought for months. A barrage of suits. But the evidence, surveys, financials, Grandpa's meticulous notes, crushed her. She took a plea deal, fraud charges sticking, her empire crumbling. A year later, I sat on Grandpa's porch, lemonade sweating in my hand, kids biking past homes with doors in every color. Red, blue, yellow. Laughter ringing where silence once ruled. The community garden buzzed, Sarah's tomatoes towering, neighbors trading tips. The farmhouse hummed behind me, now a center, classes, meetings, life pulsing through its bones. Beyond, wetlands gleamed, trails winding past signs naming plants and birds, a conservation easement locking them safe. Construction hummed again, smaller homes, solar panels glinting, green space sprawling. Mrs. Thompson joined me, her flowered housecoat fluttering, brown eyes bright. "Joe'd be proud," she said, nodding at the fields. I pulled out his faded journal. 30 years back, he'd fought developers too, saving those wetlands once before. "Stubborn as a mule," she grinned. "Like you." A blue heron soared from the marsh, wings cutting the sky above a community reborn. Diane tried to steal it all. Land, lives, legacy, but Grandpa's trap, patient and quiet, sprang shut. It wasn't just about winning. It was showing them a better way, one he'd built long before I ever stepped up.